go ahead and get started. Okay, thank you. This is the talk mentoring devs into DevOps. If you weren't expecting that, they shut the door, so I'm sorry. They actually gave us conference slides to use, but I had already started, so I only copied a few in here. But let's quickly go ahead and measure the audience. Who here would you deem yourself a system administrator or some opsy person? How about a developer? Oh, good. Manager or management? Okay. And who here is like, I am a DevOps? Okay. Kind of this, and that's kind of a little mixture of everything typically. So I have a confession. I am a developer. I am totally a developer. And I have caused ops guys to love and hate me at times. Not only am I a developer, apparently, I won an award last week. I'm Utah's best PHP engineer. So not only am I a developer, but it's in PHP. But I'm self-taught ops. I worked at startups up until this last company I joined, and I did it because there's no one else to do it. And I was kind of the worst kind of ops, the ignorant ops. I'm like, well, it has to run, it has to go. There's no one else to bail us out. I'm going to try and do this. And there's a lot of learning by trial and fire. But a little bit about me. I'm a director of development for a company called Deseret Digital Media. We'll talk a little bit about what we do later. I'm also the president of the Utah PHP user group. So if you're local, if you like PHP or even just web development, or even systems, we have guys who are system administrators who come hang out with us. Feel free. I make and break web stuff. Been doing it for about 10 years. And I've been using Salt in production since .8. I didn't realize how crazy I was. Fortunately, I wasn't operating at some of the scales you guys were. I only had like 20 or 30 servers. Wasn't in the thousands. But this presentation is going to be about some of the lessons that I've learned at my current job at DDM and previous jobs I've had, and kind of this insight into this. We're trying to increase this DevOps effort at our company. We're still learning. We have a lot to learn. There's companies out there who are amazing that we really look up to. But this is kind of what we've learned so far and what we've been doing. And slides posted online. Don't worry about taking. Don't be jotting down notes. Copying the slides. That's a waste of time because you can get them online. And feel free to ask on-topic questions. And we'll have some time for questions at the end. So for you non-locals, Deseret Digital Media, or we just call it DDM, we run local websites like klsl.com, deseretnews.com. And typically local media sites get 5 million, 10 million page views a month. But across our different properties, we do about 10 million pages a day on average. And with spikes in news and stuff, we do average about 400 million per month. We're starting to run some more national, international sites like OK.com, which is like a family media guide. It's like a nice version to use of like a Common Sense Media or something. And then we're also expanding internationally, where we have these family sites that help people teach them about, hey, here's how to, if I'm having trouble raising my 5-year-old, and I don't have a 5-year-old, so I can't think of a good example off the top of my head. But having problems, or I have a 1-year-old. I'm like, hey, how do I get him to stop peeing on me every time I take off the diaper? There's probably an article in a language, either in our Brazil site or in our Spanish site. We have that's in Mexico. And yeah, so while we're local, small, regionally we're the largest regional media website in the nation. And so I want to start off with a story. I think all of us have had a similar story at one point in time in our careers. Let's say you work for an awesome tech company, you have an awesome team, it's great to work there, and your team's really working hard on building new things. And so you work really hard and you launch your first product. And we're like, yes, this is awesome. And so like, hey, we can do some more things. And so you start building some features, maybe a few more features. The next thing you know, you have this really big application that's doing lots of different things, lots of moving parts, and it's awesome, it's cool, but it's not a simple hello world type of stuff. And you're just like, okay, team, we are awesome, we rock. And everything's good and dandy. Then one day your boss calls, and he says, hey, we need a real-time feature XYZ. And you all collectively think the same thing. And so you go ahead and start loading up on the Red Bull. And you start working really hard. Your devs are working hard. And you guys are probably completely not aware if you're in the ops side of things of what's going on. So they're working really hard and they're trying to make this real-time thing work, and they finally come up with a solution. It might not be the best solution, probably because they've been up for 80 hours that week, but that was turn off caching. We go to the deploy button and say, hey, I'm sure this will work. And they call the boss and say, hey, we launched the feature, you can relax. And they go promptly crash and fall asleep. Well, morning comes, traffic starts coming in, the packets are flooding in. And ops are like, what the is going on? Our servers are melting. Things explode. And it's a big mess. You have kind of a big cleanup effort. Your boss gets burned. Looks kind of bad. He's not very happy with you guys. Your team, other teams, especially the ops guys, make fun of you guys. And it leads to sad developers, it leads to sad ops, it leads to sad managers. Everyone's sad. This is not a fun thing to go through. And if I was asked for raise of hands, who has gone through something similar in their careers? I think pretty much everyone here. And so you say, we need a better solution. We need to be able to do, there has to be something better out there. So we sit down, we go, okay, where do we start? And you look at your application, and you realize there's just all this stuff that you've had to do to make it scale and to make it work. And you have to go in and basically kind of refactor in some best practices that you probably weren't doing along the way. And it's a big mess. And that was the kind of where we were at with DDM. Deseret News was a newspaper that has been around since the 1850s, first newspaper in Utah. KSL was the first TV station. We have one of the rare three-letter names for the TV station. And each of these companies were, they're all about TV or print. And they had these websites, they had these teams, but it's all about how can we make the website help increase print subscriptions. Who here has a print subscription to their newspaper? Okay, that's what I thought. And it's like, that's not the future. Like, why are we killing trees and all this stuff? And so, in the TV station, same way. They're not haven't been disrupted quite as bad yet, but it's coming. Like, it's amazing what YouTube and Hulu and things like that have done to TV. And so, one thing with KSL.com is they had, the good thing was, for their website, they had all these classifieds in cars and homes. And they were ahead of the curve. We had classifieds before Craigslist was around. Now, if we would have been smart, we would have been done national or international. But, so if you go to look for classifieds at locals here, you don't use Craigslist. You use our product. That's what helps generate all those 400 million page views. And so we said, we're going to form a company that's going to be all about digital and the new stuff. And so we formed this company. We launched a product called Deseret Connect that helps us aggregate content from all sorts of contributors. We started the Family Share project with all the different family sites. We started OK.com. We bought and started enhancing Utah.com. We also launched, oops, I am way too aggressive for this clicker. Anyway, we bought a bunch of stuff. We launched a bunch of stuff. And we have stuff. So we have this problem where we're like, we got all of this stuff. Where do we begin? And so some of the challenges we face is that when we joined these companies, we had two legacy networks, completely different technologies. Like, we just mashed them together. The only thing they had in common was maybe PHP, and that was it. Like, we don't have MySQL as common. We have a custom XML database that we built in-house for KSL, and it is insane. And so we had this giant mashup of technologies, tightly coupled and very fragile infrastructure, and debugging in production was difficult. It was crazy difficult. And especially bugs that were part code, part environment, were a nightmare to track down. We've actually given mythical creature names to these bugs. We have one called Chupacabra, which was a misconfigured load balancer that would cause IE10 browsers on certain AJAX requests to not handle reset packets. I mean, it was crazy. And it was a problem. And so we'd sit there and meditate and reflect, and we'd go look out on the internet, and we'd see these companies like Etsy. I mean, oh, we love Etsy. And they make home craft stuff. How is this like almost like a yard sale online, this amazing company of like ops and devs and infrastructure? And so we'd look out and envious and be like, wow, how can we be like them? So one day, we had a genius idea. Let's hire a DevOps. We're just go ahead and hire a DevOps. He's going to come in, and he's going to solve all of our problems. And I'm not joking. We actually said this. This is not a joke. We're like, we're going to hire a DevOps. But there were actually two problems with this idea. The first is we actually didn't understand what we really wanted. You know, and to be able to solve a problem, you have to really understand what you're actually trying to solve. And we just wanted someone to come in and say, hey, let's hire a DevOps, and something will happen, and we'll profit. And for us, that means everything's going to work perfectly. We're going to hire this mythical guy, and this is going to work great. And the second problem is finding people who are actually really good at dev and ops is hard. We spent 4 months trying to hire this DevOps, and interview after interview, and it came across as most of them like, these are just sysadmins who, you know, the recruiter pasted DevOps on their resume. And we had this expectation. We had this expectation of just this almighty, massive, awesome person who's going to come in and just revolutionize our world. The problem is the reality didn't quite match up to the expectations. And it wasn't a problem with the candidates, is that because we didn't want to know, each one of us doing interviews had different expectations, and just we passed on great candidates, but we're like, well, they're not going to solve the world, so why are we hiring them? And so finally we sat down after about 4 months of this and said, okay, team, what is it we're really looking for? What are we actually really trying to accomplish? And we actually discovered a handful of things, and this was a very important thing for us to do. First thing was, what does DevOps mean to us? There's a lot of, everyone here knows about the buzzword and how crazy it can be. And we said, we don't care about the buzzword. What does it mean to us? And so we went ahead and said, for us, it's that collaboration of dev and ops, and to tear down the walls and have more open collaboration. And we set our goal, hey, you know, that's what Flickr's doing. We want to do 10 deploys a day. Because if you tell your team we're doing 10 deploys a day, immediately their muscles tighten and their blood pressure goes up. They start freaking out because they think of all these things of why that won't work, and say, hey, we're going to solve those reasons why. So I say 10 deploys a day. They don't freak out. And we want to say everyone shares this goal of we want to get features out quickly. We're a smaller company. We don't have hundreds of developers and hundreds of ops, you know, but we still need to compete with companies that do. And so we need to be able to get out features out very quickly, but still be able to maintain stability. And so we looked at our team structure, and it looked something like this. And as I've done research, this is actually pretty typical. Like, I don't know what it is about us devs, but we're like rabbits. These are like pandas or something, I don't know. And so this idea of, that was not in my slides. I don't know why I said that. So this idea, we're going to bring this mythical DevOps, who is just somehow going to counterweight the balance between devs and ops. This just wasn't going to work. Hiring one person will not change and solve all of our problems. And so we looked at our team. We had a couple of realizations. The good thing is I think we had the hardest problem already solved. We had an awesome team. We had awesome people to work with. They weren't jerks. I mean, there's not a single person on our team where if they came to me today and said, we're going to remove all the different teams, break them all up, you know, draw names out of a hat, and that's your new team, I'm fine with that. I have complete confidence in everyone on our team. So I think that's honestly the hardest problem. We also realized we're not going to double our team size in the next year or 2 or 3. We have to operate at our current scale. And we discovered that each of our directors, so you have kind of a director of development over each of the main products. You know, we were kind of already acting as that bridge between dev and ops. We had all the servers, we had access to all the servers. When there was a problem, we were able to log in and try and figure it out. But we were a bottleneck. We're supposed to be sitting there supporting our teams. We're supposed to go to meetings to make sure we're okay with the stakeholders and the product owners. And we were a bottleneck. And so all these problems would kind of pile up on us, and it just wasn't scalable. So we also realized that we already had some DevOps tools amongst the different teams, but they're all kind of separate. You know, one team had some real-time logging and Capistrano deploys. Another team had some application stats with like Graphite and dashboards, and we were using Salt for configuration management. That was my team. Our ops had Nagios for alerts, and they had their own server metrics, and they're using Puppet, not for config management, for file management. And it was kind of a weird way they were using it. And then we had another team who everything was homebrewed. Like they weren't using a single thing that was not built. And it was kind of cool. But the problem was, it was just like all isolated. Like you know, we had our stuff, they had their stuff, and like we didn't really know what everyone was using. And so we looked at this idea of hire a DevOps and solve our problems, and said this isn't going to work. And so we sat down and we formed a strategy. And we realized, like, I remember we read an article about Etsy, and how it took them like 5 years to go ahead and do this. And so we said, you know what? We're going to form a strategy and start working on that. We're not going to change overnight, but we need to kind of have this strategy in place. And so the first thing we did is we promoted one of our devs to a DevOps role. Now everyone's going to say, wait a second, isn't this the advice you said that was a bad idea? Because, I mean, guys kind of ragged on that thing. And so the difference was we had a very well-defined role. We went and said, this person's going to have ownership over the tools that improve our collaboration efforts across our team. They're going to be a resource to help other teams, but the other teams are going to be responsible for kind of making sure they use it. And then this person needs to be someone easy to work with, and an aptitude for systems and ops, and likes to try new things. And so we promoted within. And so some of the advantages of this is if you have a seasoned dev, they already have all the scars. They've been burned from the fires already. They know the pain points. They know your quirks. They know how all of the chaos works. They know how we have. We were listening to Ryan Lane's talk about how they do deploys, and it was like, at least their first version of deploys, and it was like staring into a mirror. We have crazy scripts, and we have something called the synchronizer, which no one dares touch, because we will take down all 400 million of those page views with like a wrong keystroke. And so they know the system, but more importantly, I think they know the people and personalities on your team. And sometimes that can be, I don't want to say the biggest challenge, but you have to take that into account when you're starting to do things. The second thing was this team structure. We recognized that this is a little one-sided. It's just a little. I could put a 0 right there and, you know, maybe even more loaded. And so we said, okay, well, we're going to take this dev and turn them into this little DevOps. But instead, we're going to kind of view our team instead of like this and or, you know, this group and this group. We're going to kind of spread them out and say, okay, here's our dev, and here, oh, I have a pointer, that's right. Here's our dev, and here's our ops. And the thing is we're kind of focusing on this little overlap. And our goal is we want to take this overlap and extend that and start enlisting, increasing the skills and capabilities of the people on our team and say, hey, if our application needs to have a new Mongo library client for our app, I don't have to wait for ops to write the stuff. We can go ahead and do that and collaborate with ops in deploying it. And we kind of view this, at least in my mind, as a gradient, where you'll have some of your developers who are very talented in this and others who are not, but the goal is to kind of stretch and increase this triangle. It's an awesome diagram. And bring that over. And so we decided we have to increase the ops among our devs. And so what we did is we identified the devs who kind of liked ops, who wanted to learn. The good thing about the buzzword is that it increases your devs say, I want to be able to kind of realistically put that on a resume. And it's something kind of fun and exciting. And so they want to learn that. And so we found on the different teams the different devs who had that aptitude and that desire, and we paired them up with the directors and say, hey, we need to offload what you guys are doing that's not scaling onto us, and then help them offload that into others. All of the learning, this little learning dev, they do the things. We don't take over. Sorry, we don't take over. And it's so hard as like a director to not just jump in and do it. But you have to tell yourself, this is not going to scale. I need the rest of my team to be able to do this. And if there's confusion and if there's stuff that's not working, we're going to go ahead and pair program instead, where the dev is taking the lead, it's his keyboard, and I'm sitting there helping him, giving him advice, and helping him, solving the problem together. But with them typing the keys, they're the ones learning. And so step 3 was we needed to increase everyone's insight into what was going on the dev side and on the operations side. And so we wanted to kind of look in. I found this picture, and I found this picture. I'm like, this is what I want. Kind of awesome, Iron Man looking thing. And so, I'm sure everyone's read Etsy's blog, Coders Craft, and their measure anything, measure everything. And so we took that to heart. And we said, everyone has to have access to network, server, and application metrics. And we want our ops guys to be looking at it, and we want our devs guys to be looking at it. And we wanted to consolidate the places to look. You know, like everyone had their own tool set and say, okay, how can we kind of make a collective place where we all can look at the same place? And so we kind of don't have to balance, like, well, is this data here or this data here? And then we first launched this, and we gave a presentation at our tech team meeting and everything. And everyone was like, this is awesome. And then devs went back and didn't use it. And so we went through with each of the developers and said, okay, you're going to add some metrics to your application. Now let's go to Graphite and look. And once we kind of walked into that first step, the light bulb went off, and they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then we started getting more metrics in there. And then we're okay with 98% uptime in our metrics. We tried to make a really robust, scalable, like crazy fault-tolerant system. And it was getting really complicated. We said, you know what? It's in-house application metrics. We're okay if it goes down for a little bit. Because we want to keep this something simple and not crazy that we have to manage. You know, so we went out, we built some dashboards, you know, and we started having people going, hey, I want you guys to start looking at this. The next thing, this is what we're working on right now, is the real-time logging. And real-time logging is actually, it's very hard and complicated at scale. Our Apache logs are crazy, you know, because we don't have, technically we don't have like CDNs and stuff. We have kind of internal things that we do. Oh, no. Anyone know the, F5? Oh, man.
You have that thing in front, though.
Oh, hold on.
It's your stupid updates.
Okay. It's a problem having a full keyboard, but it's okay. Thank you for letting me borrow it. And so what we decided to do is, you know what, instead, because typically when something breaks, I want to see the logs now. And I want to be able to see everything. And so we said, let's start with a smaller window of data. You can start with 48 hours. You can start with 4 hours and say, because most systems have a way of pruning, you know, things out. And then once you're able to collect that data, then you can start worrying about increasing your duration of how long you keep stuff. But go ahead, we said we're going to start with a small window, but I want to be able to see what's going on now. That was very important. Right now we're trying the DevOps we promoted. He was from my team. His name's David. So he's working on that right now. We're kind of looking at Logstash, Elasticsearch, Kibana. And we also generate statistics off those logs and pipe them to our Graphite. And so the next thing is tracking changes. And so everything goes into Git. Now, those large binaries, we don't really have too many of those. We might have 1 or 2 and they are in Git. We'll probably look to do something a little bit better with that. But everyone has access to all the repos. Ops guys can look in, devs guys can look in. And everyone does their work through pull requests. We use GitHub, and we have an organizational account. If you don't want to use GitHub, you can get GitLab, or I mean, there's lots of options, but you have to have that ability to say, I want to make these changes, and have other people kind of look and review that. Everyone has their code reviewed. We do have a caveat. We're not like Nazis about it, but you know, so you can go ahead and merge without a review if it's like a simple typo fix. Like, I mean, you know, so we do newspaper. We talk about, you know, the Mormons sometimes, and we accidentally had like a moron instead of a Mormon, and so we needed to fix it real quick. So we'll push those through. Yes, and so you can go ahead and merge without a review, but you have to be able to defend your actions. And if you break something, it's kind of like a big deal, and you know, we'll give you a hard time. So the next step were deploys. And we said, okay, we need to automate our process to a single step. And we want everyone to be able to deploy, and we want our deployments logged. And so actually right now, we want to have kind of a cool UI to do this. We just log it to a file. But that way, if something breaks, our op guys can easily look at that file and say, did someone just push recently? And it's not elegant, but it works. And then easy rollbacks are a requirement for us, because if you want people to deploy more often, whatever, it's going to happen, something's going to break, and you want to be able to quickly roll that back. And we're working on this right now, is implementing feature flags. These large feature launches we've discovered, it's just a pain. And so we'd much rather have all that code live in production, but have a solid system to say, we're going to turn that off. And that makes, you know, just pushing to production much more simple. And then tests. when I see people talk about kind of DevOps stuff, anyone get the reference? Any Mythbuster fans here? Okay, good. I actually don't see too many people talking about tests. And honestly, if you want to trust your devs, you have to have tests. Because once you push to production, you have to be able to run a suite very quickly to be able to go in and say, okay, we didn't totally screw things up. Because before, we would just kind of go to the home page and like, oh, it looks like it works. And then we went to lunch. And so for all of our legacy apps that didn't have unit tests, we took some time over the kind of the winter break because the product people were gone and we were kind of just in that kind of limbo and there were no real big priorities. And we spent a month and we just wrote integration tests for all of our stuff. And now it's awesome because I can make changes to my legacy app and kind of know, hey, if I mess something up and hey, login doesn't work anymore, we can catch that pretty quick. And not our CEO. Our new apps, and when we refactor parts of legacy, we also write unit tests. And then we're using some continuous integration to make sure those tests run all the time. We have a stage server, so master is being tested all the time. And we wanted to get to the point where we can test each branch. Maybe we'll have to buy Pedro lunch and help him us 2 lunches or maybe 10. So he can help us set that up. And so I know what you're all thinking. This is SaltConf. So where's the Salt? And for us, the biggest thing that's enabled us is having the devs use the op tools. And the most important thing, oh, I was supposed to come over. Okay. The most important thing is devs can grok Salt. They can get it. Like we've tried Puppet, we've tried other things, and they have a hard time getting it. I don't know what it is about Salt, but our devs have been able to kind of get and understand Salt. They can read the SLS files and make changes. They can use aroma execution. But one of the most really important things is you need a safe environment for these devs to learn Salt. I mean, that command will run. Okay, I was wondering how long it would take you guys. So you guys are all ops people because you totally picked up it real quick. Salt is awesome, but it will not recover from that. Whenever I do a Salt demo at the very end, I'll spin up 30 servers and do things, and then I'll do this. And I'll foobar 30 demo servers every time. And I said, look, this is awesome, but you have to, it's a power tool. Like on the previous talks, it's a chainsaw. If you grab it by the wrong end, it's going to rip your hand off. And so one thing that we've been trying right now, experimenting, is we have a dev Salt master. And so it allows kind of the devs to look in. Everyone has access. Every server has 2 minions. We have the admin Salt, or the kind of runs the root. And we have a dev Salt. And we actually use the admin Salt to manage the dev Salt. And these masters live on different servers. And all of our developers have access to dev Salt, and we kind of set the permissions for Bob. We couldn't think of a name, so we call him Bob. And allow him to say, if Bob can do it, all of our admins can do it. All of our devs can do it. But they can read logs. They can even restart services, a couple of simple things. But if you want to use rollout changes, we use our admin Salt. And a quick reminder, we put everything saltine to Git. And for our dev environments, our developers, we are in charge of our own dev environment. So if you need a feature, we use Vagrant, and you go in and you add it. It's been kind of a great learning. You want them to learn on their local dev machine and not in production. We use Vagrant. There's going to be a talk later today about Vagrant and Salt. I highly recommend going and seeing it. We love Vagrant. And then who makes the changes? It's our developers. And DevOps or ops guys, they're there for advice, but for the local environment, they do that. Because once again, I can't wait on these guys over here to make changes. I want to spread that ability across my organization. Stage environment, who makes changes for our application servers? The developers. Because we have pull requests, we're able to go in and say, hey, we're going to be using Redis in the future, so I need this Redis client for my applications, Python Redis or whatever that might be, and I need that going to be on the application servers. And so we go ahead and do a pull request. And reality is, if I'm saying I'm going to be implementing Redis, I'm actually going to go and worry about the environments first, make a pull request, have the ops look at it, say make sure I didn't screw anything up, and we'll push it to production, have those libraries ready before we even start. Typically, before we even start coding. That way, whenever we need to roll that out, we don't have to worry about the dependency of saying, did I get Redis installed on all these servers? And then we do things in very small changes. Large changes, that big releases, something always goes wrong, and they're kind of scary and dangerous. And so we make all these small changes to our environments. In production environment, we merge that change to a production branch, run high state, and we're good. And once again, we do these quick, small changes. A couple caveats. Our ops people in DevOps, they worry about the VM hosts, the physical load balancers, firewalls, the routers, all that stuff that I don't know how that works. We take care of that. And then we also, ops and DevOps, they manage kind of the really critical pieces, like databases and stuff. We let them worry about that, and they have a lot of expertise in doing that. But application servers, the developers, we can do that. And so as you go and try and mentor your devs into this process, I'm glad you guys are laughing. I was worried I'd do this and no one would laugh, and I feel like this is really awkward. I'm a 5-year-old with all these Legos. Which these are actually not all mine. They're from Flickr, Common Creative License. It's awesome. But you have to realize not every dev is going to be an amazing DevOps. And you know what? That's OK. But we kind of group our devs into kind of 3 categories. Maybe 4. I forgot I did 4. So think about the impacts and operations, what the changes. Everyone needs to do that. We want to have everyone doing that. Feeling confident and looking into production, we want most people to be able to do that. You might have some junior devs who, at the time, not really getting to that. So we'll work on that with them. But our goal is most of our team to feel very confident in having the tools to debug production issues. Being able to make changes, so like saying, hey, I need to have these libraries, or I need to make changes to our Nginx configs, or whatever. We want many on our team to be able to do that. And once you're kind of comfortable debugging, we'll start mentoring you in these little things. Say, hey, you want to use Nginx for this cool thing or whatever? Let's show you how to use Salt to make this work. And then the people who are either awesome DevOps or are candidates to become those DevOps, we want some of our team. And so if I was to use a graph, I was trying to figure out how to visualize this, but this is kind of the current, you have this curve that kind of goes on like this, and you have this issue. And the idea is we want to inverse that curve and focus on this area first, and then the debug, and then make changes, and then the DevOps, and say, kind of lift the overall ability of the team. So everything for us right now is awesome, isn't it? We implemented this strategy. We're all awesome and good. The honesty is we have skeletons in our closet. If you look at we're not in this perfect state. We're still learning. We're still growing. And so right now where we're at, all of our dev environments are all using Vagrant and Salt. Our stage environments, productions, all the new stuff is salty. All the legacy stuff, we're slowly rolling it out. It is still scary for some people, like making changes to something we haven't made a change to for like 8 years. But we're working on getting everything salty. And so the question ultimately is okay, what are we going to do for your teams? You guys are going to go back to the real world, leave this awesome nirvana of SaltConf, go back to the real world and say, okay, what am I going to do for my teams? I honestly recommend having an honest introspection. Did I spell that right? Hopefully. Determine for your team what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where are your problems, and what are your goals. And then if you want your devs to be more involved, you have to increase their insight into what's going on in production. And so you want to make sure that your devs can see and understand. You want them to understand what they do impacts production and help them really see and go, oh, crap, when I wrote that for loop and didn't think about iterating over 1 million rows, that would be a problem. And then increase the responsibility. So if the metrics go up, like if your load times start going up after release, say, hey, devs, you need to take a look at this. And then if they break it, they fix it. We have a very strong policy that we're trying to enforce. It's sometimes hard, but we don't bail them out. If you break something, we're going to help you as best we can, but you're the one typing the keystrokes, you're the one who's going to fix it. Because ultimately, if I fix everyone's problems, it's not going to scale, because I can't clone myself. And then make sure everyone can see everything. And so give your developers a safe environment to learn. Let them submit code review changes. Get them using Salt. Developers, we can grok Salt. And then when you're mentoring, teaching them, let them drive. And then it takes time. And sometimes it's when someone's first learning Salt or whatever, they'll like what are you trying to do? Like your state file is like 400 lines and 10 nested if statements deep with Jinja files, and let's consolidate this. And it takes time, it takes patience. But it's totally worth it, because once all of a sudden you can have multiple people on your team be able to safely help make changes, it allows you to focus on your application and your product features and not have these bottlenecks of, well, we're waiting on ops to take care of this. So a couple final thoughts. Your team culture matters. I can't stress this enough. And this whole system will not work if you don't have a culture of collaboration and everyone's kind of on the same page. And so that's going to be, you're going to have to focus on that. And the best thing you can do is be a positive influence. If something breaks, don't start blaming. Don't start pointing fingers. Let's say, hey, how can we fix this? I just forgot what the term I was going to use. But it's amazing what 2 or 3 people in an organization, on a team, who really strive and say, I want to be a positive influence. I want to help my fellow coworkers learn. I want us to help us become awesome. What that positive influence can do. And so, because sometimes you might feel like, well, I'm in this big organization and I can't do anything on my own to make any changes. I strongly challenge that and say, you know what, a few people in an organization who really want to make change and can really care about the coworkers and care about the product and really have that sincere caring for people, it can break down all those barriers. And so, I know there's a lot of slides to go through real quick, and I actually think I'm slightly over time. Any quick questions? Yes.
So actually, the way you described the process you set up is fantastic. I mean, kudos to you. I think you took a really scientific view and really broke it down. So fantastic. But one of the things you said at the end, it took time. So how long, like from the start, when you first started looking for the DevOps, or was going to come in and start everything?
So we're about a year into this right now, and honestly, in our strategy, I say we're about halfway through our strategy. It's starting to work. We're starting to see fruit, from our labors, but we still have a long ways to go. Good old KSL.com, that's such a giant beast of this awesome thing that was built so many years ago. We have a long way to go to refactor that, but we started, maybe a final thought is we started with the smaller pieces first and learn on the smaller projects, and then we're starting to implement, once we kind of proved and figure out the bugs at a smaller scale, then we started applying them to more of our bigger projects. And right now we're working on doing KSL.com, which is like 75% of our load comes from it. Any other questions?
I'm curious where you think your DevOps role fits into oversight of new features. You brought up the example right at the start. I will just take away this cache. Where's the DevOps oversight?
So for us, it's been helping teach our devs, have a little bit of a spidey sense, I'd call it, of saying, if I turn off caching, that might not be a good idea. And then because we're trying to move to smaller features that we push out and changes and using the feature flags, where we can slowly roll out things. Honestly, probably the best thing you can do is have your DevOps team go to lunch with your devs once a week, at least. Literally. And if you can get the boss to pay for it, say, hey, we get a free lunch once a week if we go with the DevOps guys. That's where typically almost all of our exchange, we've tried formal meetings, we've tried that, but between the foosball table and lunch is where a lot of those ideas and exchanges happen. It's a lot more organic. So, all right. I probably should stop now so the next people can get set up. Or do I have time? You do. Oh, it's 10:30. Oh, I was thinking like 10:15. Oh, any other questions? I burned through 103 slides really quickly. Yes.
So, great, big team, 30 developers. If you reverse it, if you shrink it to something that's 3 people between devs and ops, how do you prioritize the most important parts of it?
So at that stage, because I've been there, at my previous job, there was an iOS guy and then me, and that's kind of where I had to learn everything. Your biggest challenge is as a collective team, and if your company is smaller, you're first have to get buy-off on management. Say, hey, we need to put an emphasis on this, and it's really easy to say, if we can have a stable system where we can go ahead and release things, but it kind of requires that upfront investment. It's kind of the same thing like with tests. In that case, everyone's a DevOps. There is no ops, there is no devs. Everyone's a DevOps when you're that small. Everyone shares a responsibility. I mean, I worked for a company called Sevo where we did online gaming, and there's 3 of us. There's our CTO. Technically, they called me the CIO, even though I didn't do anything CIO-ish, and we had our lead developer. And really, it was just 3 guys who, at any given point in time of the day, any of us could be pushing code. And at that point, you're like SEAL Team 6. Everyone's cross-trained. It's like the helicopter. If you fly in a helicopter in the Army or whatever, everyone knows how to pilot the thing. You might have a pilot, but if if he gets knocked out or whatever, everyone has to be able to fly that machine. So I think in your scenario, it's awesome because there's low barriers to change. You only have to convince 2 other people, but at the same time, it does increase a lot of responsibility. Yes.
So I'm on a fairly small team, and looking at your original org chart where you had 30 devs and 2 ops guys, cut the dev team down to a third and eliminate the ops side.
They're all devs.
All devs.
Awesome.
And it is great. And it's a lot of fun when at 2 in the morning, your boss starts texting you. Anybody know why the site's down?
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess my question is, unlike what you were saying, we actually do have the opportunity this year. We're adding some headcount. We're experiencing some growth. Right now, I think we've talked about maybe adding 1 person who would be in more of an ops/DevOps role. But there are also, obviously, we're not up and running because none of our devs are interested in DevOps. That's why I'm hearing everybody. We have other guys that they're interested as well. And what is the right? What's your feeling on the right ratio? We have this opportunity to grow and make some decisions about what type of people we're going to hire. Should we even hire a pure ops person? Or leave everything in the DevOps realm? Or we're still only getting.
You know what? I honestly believe that you're going to fall on the scale. Like, there's not like a perfect DevOps out there. Typically, you fall on the scale of something. I would find someone for that role who is very strong in the ops, but understands the dev portions of it, but you're going to have to find 1 or 2 devs on the team who, and all you have to do is go pull up statistics on salaries of DevOps, and say, hey, look, you want a big pay increase?
Well, we already have people that are devs that could lead ops.
Yeah.
My question is, do we need to really prioritize someone on the other side?
You need someone. Here's what you need. You need someone who's going to be really focused on that. That is their primary role. You need someone who's going to help counterbalance the thinking of kind of have their spidey senses of like, our varnish servers are kind of getting tapped out. We're probably going to need to expand this, or someone who's thinking ahead, and so let's do changes before something goes down, and someone who can really focus on the tools and stuff that you guys need to use. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Did anybody from the outside feel threatened when you started to roll out that strategy?
Okay. What kind of enabled us to do that is we had 1 ops guy leave. He went and took a job somewhere else. We were happy for him. He got his MBA, but he was hardcore ops. So when he left, we had kind of a chance to replace his role. We made sure we got someone who felt much more good. I can speak English. Who felt really confident in our strategy. And then our head of IT, he's kind of like our ops manager, I'd say. He is awesome. He's amazing, but he is old school. He's been with the Deseret News like 25 years. First helping with printer stuff, and then migrated into the technology. And he's really smart. But the hardest thing for him is his philosophies. We've just had to kind of work with them. And and the strategy of start with something small and have them see it work, and then have them feel, okay, this is working great for 5 servers. I feel confident in rolling this out across the 150 that we have. But if you have a really, that's probably the best thing. If you have ops people who don't believe, is telling people is really hard. Showing them, saying, hey, look what we did, and look at this, we need these additional statistics we want to track in Graphite. Here, let me add a state. Bam, they're all showing up now. All the servers like that. Do by example, yeah. Once people start using it, the gears start turning and churning, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. So I have a business idea that I'm working on, and if I didn't have slides to finish, I probably would have had it done by now. But I thought, hey, what if I had like a Minecraft as a service, type of deal where I use DigitalOcean to spin up servers on demand, and then when you're done with them, it spins them down and backs up your world to S3. So that way you can have an 8 gig server that you use 4 hours a day and costs less than a 1 gig server. And 2 years ago, I would have a single clue of how to start that. And now I'm like, hey, I can use Salt. I can use Salt Cloud. I can use this for the States. I have I love this the saying I heard, Salt is a framework. It's not like a typical like application framework, but it is like Legos. Like there's all these awesome pieces that you can go in and start playing around. My goal is that you have the Despicable Me minions. My goal is that the new cool trend is going to be the Legos, yeah. Well, that's like going retro. I'm like the hipster of DevOps. No, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to make it. Anyway, any other questions? Yes.
Yes. In the organizational chart, do the people who moved on the DevOps role report to the ops side of management, or how does that work?
They do. So they report under ops, but on our tech side, we have a very flat structure. We don't have a lot of hierarchy. We have our VP of technology, the director. So you have like a director of operations, and then all the devs or ops. And the key thing for us, the biggest advantage we have is we have a very, like I said, our team is very happy and easy to work with. And so that barrier, which I think for some people will be the hardest thing to overcome, was already solved for us. So I was like, why aren't we doing this? We don't have any a-holes on our team. We could totally pull this off. So anyway, it's probably on camera. Awesome. I'll show it to my wife. Anyway, all right, any other questions? All right. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. If you have any feedback on the slide, on anything, please feel free to email me for something I can improve, or questions that you had. Later, you want to contact me. If you're not on the IRC Salt channel, you need to be on the IRC Salt channel. It's awesome. And my website is my email address. Go typos. justincarmony.com. All right. Okay. That's it. Thank you, guys.